So now I'm going to introduce Missy Williams, the founder and director of the Dania Vervet Monkey Project in Dania. And I've been waiting for this for a whole year. This is Missy.
All right, thank you. All righty. All right. Thank you guys for coming out with possible rain. So, that's okay. It went cold and now we're back to our Florida programming. So, like Karen said, my name is Dr. Missy Williams. I am the founder and director of the Dania Beach Vervet Project, and I also run the Dania Beach Monkey Sanctuary. So, it has taken on a life of its own. So, that's what I'm going to share with you guys today about a decade of stories. It has definitely turned into something I was not expecting. If you would have asked me, I'll put this water here, 13 years, 14 years ago, hey, Missy, do you want to run a monkey sanctuary? That was not part of my plan. So I always tell people, take your 5-year, your 10-year plan and throw those right out the window when life presents you with unique opportunities. And this is what I'm going to share with you today about. Alrighty, so this is how it all started in 2014. I was a Ph.D. student in the lab at FAU with Dr. Kate Detweiler. I had planned on going to Gombe National Park to study hybrid monkeys. I did not know about the Dania Beach monkeys. I only found out about them through another lab mate who is a native Floridian. And after a meeting, she said, hey, very random. Have you seen the monkeys at the airport? No, what are you talking about? I'm from California. Now I know how Florida rolls with their exotics, so it shouldn't have been a surprise to me. So I started trying to figure out what she was talking about. She says they're by the airport. So I went to Google, as we all do. Hopefully we don't get misinformation. And I found a YouTube video that a tourist had posted of her interacting with a monkey on a parking lot. This was the Park and Fly that no longer exists. I did call Park and Fly and I said, hey, I heard you have monkeys. And she said, yeah, sure, come on down. Once again, I thought this was a joke. I got there and it turns out, yes, Florida, we have monkeys. And that changed everything. I reached out to my advisor. I said, yes, there actually are monkeys here. And she said, well, there hasn't been any research done on them, so this might be a great opportunity for you. I'm married, I'm a mom, so traveling to Africa back and forth for research was going to be a little bit of a logistical nightmare. I was going to do it, and then these guys showed up, and they've changed every single thing. All good stuff, though. So this is how it's going. Completely, like I said, unexpected. This is opened up the sanctuary, and this is one of our residents. This is Margarita. I'll talk more about her. So yeah, this was not on my bingo card, as people like to say, at all for my career. And now it's become my life, and it is 100% worth it. All right, so things I'm going to talk to you about today are compassionate conservation. Has anybody heard of that? Excellent. I will tell you all about it. I'm a big fan, and this is the philosophy that drives our sanctuary and our Vervet Project research. And I'm going to tell you about some key data that we found out studying the monkeys, and then last, what we do at the sanctuary. So that is a picture of the Dania chimpanzee farm. This is where the monkeys escaped from in the late 1940s. So the story goes, either the monkeys opened the latch or the zookeeper forgot to lock it. Either worked out just fine for the monkeys. About 50 got out. They got all of them back except 12 to 15. So the 12 to 15 have turned into about the 36 or 40 individuals that we have today. The location of the Dania chimpanzee farm is on Federal, not there anymore, but if you're leaving the airport and heading south, and right before you go over the Dania Cutoff Canal, look to the left, there are FPL towers. FPL bought the land in 1956, 1957, so that is where the Dania chimpanzee farm was, and it consisted of about 5 to 7 acres. Alrighty, so this is compassion. I know. This is why I do what I do. They just sucked me right on in with those little eyes. You can't say no, right? So compassionate conservation is a very different way of thinking how we interact with our environment and our animals and the ecosystems, right? The first one that we go by is do no harm. And I'll talk a little bit more about each of these tenets and how it is incorporated into our work. Individuals matter. So we believe that each individual life of an animal has value and it matters 100%, regardless if you're native or non-native. Inclusivity, we include all critters and plants into our compassionate conservation, into the care and understanding the value of each of those. And we promote peaceful coexistence between humans and non-human animals. Alrighty, so we like to pride ourselves that we are actually a model for coexistence. So like I mentioned before, we believe that every species has ecological and ethical value. I'm gonna take this off. I'm a wanderer. I get nervous back here. So every species has ecological and ethical value, right? So this is an example. So at our sanctuary, we have all sorts of critters. It's not just monkeys, wild monkeys. We have fox, marsh bunnies, iguanas, raccoons, you name it. However, we treat each of them equally and with value and compassion. So last year, this poor raccoon had to participate in our Valentine's Day activities. He didn't really know he was participating. He just happened to be there and he was he cooperated, right? So actually this was a kissing booth that we had set up for the monkeys, and each monkey got a rose, and we took some really cute pictures. So we always try to make it fun for them. But anyway, yeah, so we treat all the animals with the same value and respect across the board. And we also, to prevent these conflicts that people talk about a lot, human-wildlife conflict. Oh my God, there's a raccoon in my garbage, there's a possum in my roof, all sorts of complaints. We try to mitigate that on site and then bring that information out to the community so we can pass it on to you so you can live peacefully with all the animals that we share the planet with. So what we recommend to people is always secure your food, waste, and shelter sources to prevent conflict. Animals are freeloaders. They're going to be like, oh, there's free food over there. They will take advantage, right? And then once they figure out where it's at, they will keep coming back, right? So we always say, go to the source of the problem, whatever it is attracting that animal to your yard and you don't like, put it away, figure out an alternative. There's plenty of things available, lots of information out there for you to look at. So instead of removing and euthanizing an animal, this is a humane way to deal with the problem. A lot of us, we like to go out and we educate surrounding businesses. So yes, we have we're kind of an industrial area near the port. So of course they get a lot of animal visitors on their parking lots as well. So we do like to go to businesses and say, hey, if you see a raccoon, if you see a coyote, or if you see a fox, you don't want them coming back, we can help you out with that. So we like to go just beyond the monkeys and we like to educate about wildlife in general. So the bottom line is we don't have conflict at our site at all, regardless of how many animals show up. We have a litter of raccoons there right now. And raccoons are very clever. We all know this, right? And those little hands, they can open anything, manipulate anything, and they don't take no for an answer. But we don't remove them. They live there. It's their forest. We're there to share in the space. And we figured out, keep the door locked, keep the food away, and they will open the doors and they'll take advantage. So we've kind of learned to figure out a way to prevent them from doing things that we don't want them to do. And they're not aggressive. People always say, oh, the raccoons are out during the daytime. Yes, they are. So people from the Northeast move down. They're like, oh my God, that's a raccoon. Does it have rabies? No, they're just looking for food. So we like to dispel rumors and myths like that about them as well. So yeah, we have, like I said, marsh bunnies, coyotes, we have stray cats, you name it. Everybody just shows up. It's a safe place for them all to exist. And we make sure that we make it respectful between humans and non-human animals. And we all get along just fine. Alrighty, so this kind of falls into why conservation compassion matters today, right? The number one issue with human-wildlife conflict is the loss of habitat. And here in Florida, we are under rapid development, right? So you will end up inadvertently building on an animal's home. They'll come back, they always do. So people, the first choice is, like I mentioned before, is removal. That does not work. It drives the vacuum effect. So for example, if a coyote is removed, okay, people are like, yes, we got the coyote removed, but it kicks all the females into ovulation and end up bringing more pups into the area. People don't know this, yes. So, and also with the vacuum effect, if you remove a raccoon, you remove a possum, a rat, you've just created a convenient empty space. And guess what? Who's going to move in? Whatever you just removed. So it's continually going to be a cycle. So that's why I always say, look for really what is a source of attractant to your yard or to your home and get rid of it. And then this problem will be no more. 90% of invasive species are actually due to human activity, right? We've been moving plants and animals around for years, and some do well, and some just simply die out. So conservation asks us to recognize human responsibility, take accountability for the actions and behaviors that have caused these particular problems. And I find a lot of time when I'm looking into invasion biology, you'll never see a human mentioned at all. It's always about the animal or the plant that's negative. But we have to include ourselves into the problem to solve the problem. Alrighty, so yes, invasive species hysteria. So a lot of people don't know this. People love to use the term invasive to describe every single plant or animal that's introduced. That's not accurate. And I don't know how that became a thing, but only 10% of introduced species go on to become invasive. 10%. All this hysteria for 10%, right? So that means 90% of people describing as invasive is not correct at all. And it's actually turned into a multi-billion-dollar industry based on 10% that people are complaining about, right? So it's become insecticides, rodenticides, people's jobs rely on that, they need to get grants, etc. It's all on 10%. So the threat is often exaggerated for funding, right? Or for public baiting or for public support. And I always say when it comes to invasive species, really the issue is enforcement, not euthanasia, right? So for example here, exotic pet laws, we have them in the state of Florida. You can't have certain animals without a certain permit. However, it's very difficult for that enforcement to take place. And that really is the problem. So I believe enforcing the law is a solution as opposed to removing or euthanasia to the animal. So, and come on, look at that little guy, right? Alrighty, so we apply all of those things I just said to you into our philosophy at the project and at the sanctuary. So what is a vervet monkey? Well, they're a form of African monkey. There are 7 species, and they're highly adaptable little critters. They really just need a sleeping tree, access to food and water, and they typically do quite well. They're omnivores, so they eat a wide variety of foods. However, in Dania Beach, they've been fed human food since the 40s. So yes, they rely on people for food and they develop a palate for human food. So if you were to go to Africa and see a vervet, they would eat anything, bread, lizards, bird eggs, etc. The monkeys in Dania Beach give that all a very big thumbs down, right? I've seen people offer them things that a vervet monkey in Africa would just be like, please, this is my day, right? And then these guys will sniff it, toss it, and just walk away. So they know what the good food is, and it's typically a high sugar food item or a high fat item, right? So they love mangoes, bananas, apples. What's another one that they like? Sometimes I've seen people offer them avocado, they'll eat that. Then sadly, there are some places, I've discouraged this place millions and millions of times, but they like to feed them gummies and candy and lollipops, and I'm like, great, now we have diabetes in the population. So hopefully not, And they're highly intelligent. So they're really good at problem solving. So for example, with the 8 that we have that live full time with us on site, we have 4 locks going into each enclosure. And they will watch, and I've seen them take the code and start spinning the numbers. So this is why we have 4. And I always tell my volunteers, you don't turn one number, you turn all of them just forever and ever. So that way they don't get lucky, right? And able to escape the one day. So they're very smart. And so we have to count for that when interacting with them and then dealing with them in captivity. Alrighty, so like I mentioned, there are 7 species. Chlorocebus dryas is not pictured. But our monkey is the green monkey, which comes from West Africa. And you can see the other species listed below, and you can see the areas in Africa from which they come from. But ours are green monkeys. They were imported in, like I mentioned, and they came from West Africa. So I already told you where they came from, but I had to figure this out on my own when I was going through my PhD program. How do monkeys from Africa end up here in Florida? And these are a lot of the things that I found when I went and interviewed the community. Community is a great source of historical information. So it was very cool to interact with the local Danians and hear the stories about the monkeys. And this is some of the things that people had offered as a possible place or source for this population. Some said they escaped from a medical facility. All right, monkey jungle, I've heard that a lot. They did not come from monkey jungle. It's way down in Miami. Failed zoo or escaped pets, and now with the escaped pets, I'm like, I believe it. But actually, like I had mentioned, they came from the Dania chimpanzee farm. However, before the Dania chimpanzee farm, it was called the Anthropoid Ape Research Foundation, and it was located in Dania Beach, in the same place at the Dania chimpanzee farm. Layla Roosevelt and her partner Armand Dennis were importing animals in from Africa, and they were actually bringing in primates in from Africa. They bring sold off through the biomedical trade, and they also kept some animals on site as a tourist attraction. So it kind of offset the cost of having these animals on site. Like I mentioned earlier, 1947, 1948, they all got out. They've got all of them back except 12 to 15. So the 12 to 15, they haven't really left the area that they were introduced to. They stayed really, really close. But now they're like 36 or 40 individuals left. And like I mentioned before, it became the Dania chimpanzee farm. And I was able actually to speak with the granddaughter of the woman who bought it. So some really cool tales. Maybe you can get her to come give a talk. It was very interesting for her to share the stories of what was going on with the Dania chimpanzee farm. So that's how they ended up here. Alrighty, so we were trying to figure out during our studies, okay, we know we have seven species of Chlorocebus. We want to make sure that what we're seeing from a phenotypic perspective, they met all the hallmarks, the check boxes of being a green monkey. They had that black face and like greenish color fur, so they blend in really well with the trees, and they have a really long golden tipped tail. So phenotypically.
Oh, I was going to wait till you're done this, but I'm curious, I mean, these will eventually become their own species, correct?
I would love that, but we'll talk a little bit about the prognosis of this population. So we were using genetic markers because there is a wild population down in the Caribbean. So they were introduced during the slave trade in the 1600s as exact species of monkeys. So we were curious, well, maybe these actually came from the Caribbean population, not from Africa. So we did some genetic work, and we actually got a genetic marker that came right straight out of Sierra Leone. So it did prove the hypothesis that, yes, they were indeed brought in by Layla Roosevelt, and they were from West Africa. So, but if you do go down to the Caribbean, the population there is very large. So I think it's St. Kitts and Nevis. They estimate that there's a ratio of 1 monkey to every human on the island. Like I said, they're adaptable, right? So one of the big things is, well, why don't they mate and become a huge population here? They're in 1,500 acres of mangrove space. They're provided food, and that is still one of the questions we're trying to figure out. So in 1992, there were 36 monkeys that were documented, and then in 2014, I documented 36 monkeys. So that was very interesting, and the population seems to be pretty stable, hovering around that. And as I've been out there longer and longer, I'm starting to see some of the, I guess, hurdles for the population to grow, and they're never going to grow and expand outside of that area. So like I mentioned, 40 individuals, and I did some modeling for my doctorate research to figure out, well, hey, is this population going to go extinct? Yes, it is predicted to go extinct within the next 50 to 100 years. So they just can't get to a certain number that allows them to continue breeding to go beyond the current population number. Some of the issues that we're seeing, they get hit by cars, they're electrocuted, that's a big problem. Trying to think of it, we had one die of tetanus because of the area which he was in. A lot of them disappear, and I believe this is for the exotic pet trade. Social media has done a huge disservice to the exotic pet trade industry and showing that, oh, monkeys are great pets. They're not great pets. They're not great pets. So they're really having limited growth, and the mortality is something that I'm trying to figure out what's going on. We think there might be some inbreeding going on, small population, there's no new genes being introduced to keep them pretty much what I would describe as genetically healthy. So as an example, last year, one social group that hangs out on our property had 6 infants. Only 1 survived. So this is the problem. So the infant mortality is pretty high overall. So obviously it's not going to contribute to a population explosion. Like I mentioned, they're simply introduced. They're not invasive. To be invasive, population has to expand out of the introduced area. The numbers have to grow. They have to outcompete local flora and fauna for food. They have to provide a human health risk. What was the other? There's another one that they don't check off. An economic risk. They're not checking any of those boxes off. So therefore, they simply are an introduced species. Okay, so this is why I ended up doing what I do. So as a non-native, they were privy to many welfare options. And when I was going through my studies, I had come across a lot of animals that were injured that I thought would require medical help. I called the Wildlife Center. Oh no, we cannot help. That animal's a non-native. Like, oh, well, what's going to happen? The animal just gets to sit out here and not be treated or die of an infection. Yeah, that was the choice. Or they would pick up the animal to euthanize it. The other two choices were find a permitted person to take or a facility. Typically, those were people who participated in the pet trade. Not a huge fan of that. Or they might be sent off to a commercial breeder, which inadvertently passed them into a lab setting. Not good. And I thought, maybe I can get zoos and other sanctuaries before I started mine. Maybe you could do a team effort. And if for some reason one or two might need a permanent home, can you help me? And they will not take them. So it's very expensive, as I've learned, taking care of captive primates. And zoos typically get a lot of funding for critically endangered species, and they're not that. So I was like, I have to solve my own problem here. So that's kind of weird. I got out of order. Yeah. So why sanctuary? Like I said, limited welfare protections. And like I said, we go back to this compassionate conservation. Every animal is an individual, right? I value each life. They matter. So euthanasia to me just didn't make any sense. And I just didn't think it was fair to them to have those limited options. And also, as I'd gone through my research, I also felt responsible for the population because I'd exposed them through scientific research and also a lot of the news media. So I didn't just want to walk away because you never know what's going to come behind you. Sometimes scientists will come in and they might do a little bit more invasive research than I would be comfortable with, or maybe they'd just be permanently removed from the area. So I was like, that is not happening. So here we are. So this is what we do. So we promote the conservation, welfare, and awareness of the Dania Beach monkey population. And we do that through ongoing research. So yes, there's lots of really cool stuff to learn about this population. They're relatively understudied. And there's lots of questions that we would like to get answers to. We do a lot of community outreach. And also we provide lifetime care for any monkey that can't be returned to the wild. So originally, I thought, I'm going to open a sanctuary. So one of these wild monkeys is injured. I can't release, regardless if the animal would do well. You can't release. So I'm like, I'll just open my own sanctuary. That was the plan. Then people got wind that I had a permit, and all of a sudden, people were surrendering their pets. So now, it's like we actually have more surrendered pets than we actually do from the wild population. So research marches on. So we do have valuable research, like I mentioned, it's not always just about the monkeys. The mangroves in the area that we occupy is relatively understudied as well. There haven't been any long-term bird studies, bird or mammal surveys, anything. So this is a great place for students to come and get research without actively having to leave the country. It really is an affordable spot to do this. We're still collecting that demographic data, like some of the things that I had mentioned. We have 6 infants, now we're down to 1. We're holding on to all of that. And we have high school students that do come in to get research opportunities as well. And we've recently opened a field school. So for the field school, I believe science should be available to everyone. It should not be inaccessible due to finances or location. So we opened up our doors. And we're offering basic ecological field schools skill sets. So the students sign up, and Aaron Mencia is the gentleman in the yellow shirt, and they learn all about what it is to be a wildlife biologist, how to collect data, and how to turn that data into something meaningful. And it's done right here in Dania Beach. We offer 2-day classes, and we've also offered a 5-day course. And what's really great, we've had university students, we had Nova Southeastern students come, we've had Broward College students come, And then we've actually had 2 high school students from Pinecrest come. So we really want to get the message out. Yes, we love our monkeys, but there's other opportunities that are available here, and it should be made available for the community. So if you do want to go out of the country, this is the thing. If you want to go study monkeys or whatever, when you leave the United States, you have to get a grant, you have to get your permits, you have to get your visas, and you have to be able to afford to stay in the country for 6 to 12 months. It's expensive, right? Only a small percentage of people can do that. So we want to be able to provide that experience here locally and an affordable experience for everyone. And they had a great time until they got ate by the mosquitoes. So this is how you wake me on. Like, do you really want to do wildlife research? To see how you do, right? We do community support, a lot of community educational outreach talks. We've had a couple of elementary schools participate. So Aaron, once again, he's a jack of all trades. He will give talks to local education, local elementary schools, and allows them to create enrichment for our monkeys. Enrichment is very important. We don't offer food trays. We expect the monkeys to forage and look for food like they were if they were in the wild. So Aaron goes out to these elementary schools and the kids get really creative, and we bring that enrichment back to the monkeys. We'll take pictures and videos of the monkeys using that, and we send it back to the classroom teacher, and then the teachers are able to share that with the students. So this is just one of the days that Aaron had gone out and they had created some really cool enrichment for the monkeys. All right, so here we are, the sanctuary. We have about 16 acres. We don't lease anymore, so we got very lucky. There's a new owner of the land, and he said, I'm not going to charge anything. We love what you do. So I said, oh, thank you. That helps a lot with the budget because, well, like I said, taking care of these animals can be very pricey. So Aaron Mencia, like I said, he's the jack of all trades. He's a site manager. He's an MS student, and he's also the field instructor that we have out there. And then Dr. Ph.D, he is a vet, and he does his stuff pro bono. We got very lucky with that. So he is a primate medicine vet specifically, and we got very, very lucky with that. So he knows exactly what's going on with the monkey. I'll send a video, I'll send a picture, and he'll say, this is what's going on, this is a medication you should try to get to stabilize, and I'll see you in the operating room tomorrow. So we get very lucky. And Good Karma has actually played a big role into us, Good Karma Pet Rescue. They offer their facility for us to do exams and surgeries. So it's really become like a community effort to keep the animals safe. We have 8 resident monkeys. I'm going to introduce you to them in just a minute. We have about 20 volunteers. We have some that come in the morning and some come at night, and they come prep food, clean the enclosures, and just take care of general site maintenance. Everybody loves it. We have volunteers from many different backgrounds. We have a flight attendant. We have a Chili's manager. What else do we have? I'm just trying to, I'm blanking on the different people, but we're all very diverse backgrounds, right? And we all believe in the compassionate conservation. Every animal has value, and that's really what unites us and keeps us going, and a shared love for taking care of the animals. All righty. So I'm going to introduce you to our residents. So this is the first resident, Spock. Like I said, I only open for wild monkeys. Wild, keep that in mind. So this was our first resident. Spock was a wild monkey. He was being fed by a local business. The manager said, please don't feed him. The employees kept feeding him, and he kept coming back. And then all of a sudden he was trapped, and he was placed with a pet dealer down in Miami. I managed to track him down, and once I got my permit, we were able to take possession of him, so now he lives with us. He's older. We estimate him to be about maybe 15 or 16. They live 20, 25 years. So he has a little bit of arthritis, which is fine, but he still gets around with no problem at all. He's a really resilient little dude. We love him. And when we set him up, he was so happy. He had a beautiful enclosure. We had seed grapes, all sorts of plants that he could forage in. And then we had this one and another one show up and ruined his bachelor pad. So we'll talk about that. So Betty is also a wild monkey. She was electrocuted. Like I mentioned, a lot of the animals do die from electrical burns and wounds. So she was about 10 months old when we picked her up. So she was an infant, and we had to amputate her leg and part of her tail. So, and she could have gone back into the wild because it's amazing without a limb. It doesn't bother them at all. They're very agile. They don't miss a beat. However, her being a non-native, we couldn't release her. So she lives with us as well. She's very mischievous. They all have a range of personalities, and this is the troublemaker right here. So when you go in to clean the enclosure, she loves to pickpocket. So you had to check everything to make sure she didn't five-finger discount anything on the way out. So she's doing well. So, but this is the first couple of weeks I had to treat her at home. She had to have her, her medications, the wound change daily. And she stayed in my house. And I was like, I can't believe people have monkeys for pets. It was insane. I could not get her out the door fast enough to the site because it is wild. I had her in my bathroom. I had toddler-proof things, if that makes sense. And I would let her out, for an hour here or there. Ate my toothpaste. She was on top of the chandelier one time. I'm just like, Lord have mercy. So, but anyway, moral of the story is no pet monkeys. It's crazy. And secondly, she's safe and she's happy today. Alrighty, so this one came along. And so Spock lives with Betty and this one. And those are the ladies that destroyed his bachelor pad. As soon as we put them into his enclosure, the plants went, they ripped up his blanket, gone. Completely gone. But they all get along fine. They're little three musketeers. She was a former pet. We got her young enough, I think. So when we introduced her to Betty, they were about the same age. I really think she picked up some of the cues of what it means to be a wild monkey. And she does quite well with them. She's a lover for sure. And what's really interesting about pet primates, she's a great example of this. They latch onto one person and they attack everybody else in the family. I'm her person. That was the monkey sitting on my shoulder of one of the first slides. So she gets very angry if she thinks anyone's going to get near me, touch me. She'll throw herself at the enclosure and she will try to bite. So this is a problem too with pets. It does happen at home. The pet monkey says, well, you're my man. Nobody else in this room can touch you. And with those big teeth, they can cause a lot of damage. But yeah, so this is Margarita. She's spicy. So this is probably the most tragic story. This is Mojo and Maya. You can find them on YouTube. There's a documentary called, I think, Monsters Owning Monkeys. So they're very famous monkeys. They had 8.5 million followers on TikTok, right? So the original owner came into some legal problems, had to sell them. So he sold them to a gentleman in Tennessee who thought, great, 8.5 million followers. I'm going to get that along with the money that goes along with them. He had no idea what he was getting into. Vervet monkeys, most monkeys, they don't want to be held. They don't like to be dressed in clothing, all these things that you see that people make really cute on social media. More than likely, the animal has been drugged. They use codeine or Benadryl to sedate them. Because I guarantee, if I walked in and tried to put a dress on either of these, I would be ripped to shreds. They want nothing to do with it. So they were sold to that gentleman in Tennessee. He had Mojo's teeth removed because he had attacked this man twice. So that's what people don't understand about monkeys. They're not pets. And when you naively take on that responsibility, you really don't know what you're getting into. So anyway, he was getting reported consistently to the USDA for what people perceive to be abuse. There's no other oversight agency for exotics in Tennessee. And so he had this little plan. Well, I'm going to have the monkeys stored somewhere else, and I would tell my followers that they were confiscated and euthanized to teach them a lesson. So what he did, he gave him to another friend, and they became anonymous monkeys for sale on the internet. And it turns out, because they were so famous, a lady in Germany messaged the person, like, is that Mojo? They're like, no, it's monkey 1, monkey 2, we're just getting rid of them. So an anonymous person paid $11,000 in cash to get them out of the situation that they were in, and now they live with us. So otherwise, they would have gone into probably the pet trade. But they did come with a lot of psychological problems, just because they had been transitioned and abused, and for them to learn to trust people has been very difficult. And we still have, they're good monkeys overall, but they're a little angry sometimes, but I'm like, fair play. I would be angry too. They have taken a liking to my husband, which is really interesting. So Maya is the one on the right with her little toofers showing. She does not like women. That's kind of interesting, I thought. And she likes men, particularly my husband. So she'll try to eat my shirt, my pants, pull anything. if I'm near her, which is fine, but if my husband shows up, all of a sudden she's up against the wire, she wants scratches, completely different personality. And the same way with Mojo. So they, they know who they like, and they've come a long way. So we've had them, it says Freedom Ride February, so maybe that was 2 years ago. So they're doing well, they've improved physically and emotionally, and they seem to be quite happy with us, which is good. And then, oh yeah, here's little Mojo. So yeah, this is kind of a brief on each one. He's a class clown. 1 year for Halloween, we gave them pillowcases like ghost costumes. He was the only one who tried to put it on. And I think it's because historically he had been dressed by his former owners. But he's funny, he's super intelligent. So when I talked about, spinning the locks and all that, he takes that to the next level. So he's the one we have to watch out to. So if we give him a food puzzle, it's done. Didn't even take him 2 minutes. It's done and over with, then he pulls it apart. And I can give that same food puzzle to another monkey and he'll just sit there and be like, oh gosh, I don't know how I'm gonna get my food out of this. Incredibly clever. And he's everyone's friend now. He gets along with everybody, but he's still moody. So people don't know this, you can't take things from a monkey. They get very angry. And he is a great definition, an example of if you try to take something from him, it will not work out at all. So, but his teeth are removed, but does that stop the bite force if they were to able to get a hold of you? And then this is Maya. Maya Papaya, this is the one that loves my husband. Yeah, she's notorious for her sneak attacks. She thinks it's funny. So if you're cleaning a neighboring enclosure, I can see her. Like if I'm here and this is the enclosure I'm trying to walk into and hers is over here, she'll try to hide behind the door of her enclosure. And she does this. Just waiting. And then if you're the newbie, she likes to haze all the new volunteers. She'll jump out and throw herself at the enclosure, hoping you scream. That makes her day. That's what I always tell the volunteers. Don't react. If you scream, she wins. So they're like, it's so hard to ignore. I'm like, I know, just do it. But yeah, she's notorious for her sneak attacks. And, now we just kind of like, oh, that's Maya, just being silly. But she's come a long way. She's recently, I should not tell this or we'll ruin her bad reputation. She's actually been nice to me the last couple of days. So I will take that as a win. And then this is Victor. We love him. He was confiscated by Fish and Wildlife. He was being illegally kept in a yard, and it was a 5x5x7 enclosure. We don't know anything about him. I don't know his age. He might have come from the wild population. They just don't know. So he came to live with us. He's very sweet, and he's the one that I mentioned. If you give him the same food puzzle that you give Mojo, it's a little bit of a challenge. So we do have to divide up our food enrichment devices. This is for Mojo, and this is about Victor's speed, so we make sure that they can get their food. He's very sweet. He does not like freeloaders, and what I mean about that is if the wild monkeys come by, or a raccoon, or the birds, and they take something from the bird feeders or anything, loses his mind. So he does not like that. He makes ugly faces at them and will display at them. So he's very possessive of his belongings. And like I said, not the best table manners. So he'll sit, sometimes actually, I've seen him take his food and actually go sit at the table like a person to eat. So it's very cute. But he's a good boy. I don't know, maybe he's 6 or 7. He's still relatively young for a Vervet. And this is his partner. This is Mika. So Victor and Mika do live together. She's a surrendered pet from Missouri. So what happened was her owner was getting a baby monkey and, couldn't keep up with Mika. So once they reach a certain age, you can't manage them at all. So the woman's like, well, I'm getting a new monkey. Here's mine. So, and I'm like, well, what I've learned in the industry, they're called flippers. So they'll get an animal, they'll get bored with it, or it gets too big for them. They can't handle it. They get rid of them. They start over. So I said, don't call me with your next one. We're not taking it. So, but she's sweet. She's very moody, but she is a pro napper. We will find her sleeping in the most weird positions, and she loves to hide under her blanket. So she's, we call her a little babushka lady. So when it gets really cold, the only thing you'll see is her little face sticking out. So yeah, she's a funny one. And then this is the most recent one. This is Ellie. We believe she's a hybrid. We can't figure out exactly what species she's mixed with. She makes a very different call compared to the others, and you can see physically she looks different. She surrendered pet from Alabama. She was kept, from what I understand, in an RV camper. So she wasn't, when we got her, being outside was very scary for her. Seeing wild monkeys was very scary for her. So she displayed a lot of anxiety. And the woman that had her before taught her, well, if you get angry, don't bite me, bite yourself. So this is an issue that we have. Her teeth have been removed. So I'm like, well, I guess if she's going to bite herself, this is probably a good thing at this point. But we've kind of seen that behavior tapered off. But if she does get very frustrated, well, that's her go-to as anxiety, self-soothing. We would love for her to house with either, the three amigos that we have, or Mojo Maya, or Victor Mika, but she just doesn't know she's a monkey. And so she perceives everything that they're doing to her as mean. But you'll see Mojo reach through and he'll want to groom her, which are all positive signs of good monkey relations. And she automatically attacks him through the wire. And with her not having any teeth, it's too risky to put her in with other monkeys at this point. So we're really hoping maybe over time, it could take years, which is fine, that she'll maybe end up eventually housing with some of the other monkeys that we have on site. So she's really sweet. She's doing well. It's just the fact she doesn't know she's a monkey. She's kind of stuck between being a human and being a monkey. She really wants human attention. We do give it to her just because we don't want her to go without, but we really wish she would take her desire for attention away from humans and put it onto a monkey, but we're not quite there yet. So very soon, we hope. So to run all this, like I said, oh my, it's so expensive. And my husband's so funny. He's like, what are you going to do when you're 70, you want to retire? What are you going to do with all these monkeys? I was like, oh boy. So I do have to pass the torch on, and I'm hoping once again it goes to poor Aaron because he's the jack of all trades out there. So, the things that we do have, the sanctuary needs, we have annual vet exams. So they do get their rabies shot, their tetanus shot, blood work done. And if they have any injuries in between, Dr. Odovic is great with that. He takes care of it. The food has become a thing. So we're getting 2 more monkeys, by the way. So we'll have a grand total of 10. So we always ask for people, if you know anybody that has fruit in their yard and you want to donate bananas, mangoes, that sort of thing, please reach out to us. They will not say no. Habitat improvement. So, now we have to expand and build another enclosure for the 2 monkeys that are coming. So it's all these things that keep popping up. And like I said, all very unexpected, but like I said, it's worth it. They're happy monkeys. And then the monkey toys that I mentioned, all the food goes inside of a toy. We can't give them in trays. They have nothing but time on their hands. So we want them to actually use their mind, problem solve, figure out how do I get to the food. So all the monkey toys go towards that. All right, so how can you help? Please share our story. Let everybody know what we're doing. You can donate. We're on social media, or you can encourage people to take a field course. So if you have a high school student or a college student in the area and they're looking into wildlife biology as a career, we're happy to accommodate them and they can take one of our classes. All right, so with that, a big thank you. And I always like to quote Steve Irwin, we don't own the planet Earth, we belong to it and we have to share it with our wildlife. So this goes back to our philosophy of compassionate conservation. And with that, if you guys are interested, these are the QR codes. So this is TikTok, this is our website, and then that's Instagram. So we do have YouTube and Facebook. I'm not a social media tech savvy person, so I have a young whippersnapper who takes care of all this. It's not my son, it's another person. So she knows, I guess, how to get people to look at him. I don't know. There's a science behind it. I don't know about it, but we're out there. So if you want to check our posts, we just did St. Patrick's Day, so there should be a post coming up with them enjoying their St. Patrick's Day. Other than that, well, thank you.